It's 2018. It's 9:06 a.m. Central Standard Time. Welcome to the Crushing Iron Triathlon Podcast.
You know, when Coach starts one like that, he is pumped up.
Ooh, actually, I'm exhausted.
Are you?
But, yeah, I'm torched.
I was thinking if we could somehow get that Skype ringing sound into our open music, that might fire us up more.
Yeah, it's get my adrenaline and my endorphins kicking with that doom ding doom 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 ding. Yeah, it's kind of the jam right there.
It does fire me up a little bit.
Yeah.
It kind of says like, you're going live.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
you're going live in 2 minutes,
and
2 seconds,
3 and 2, and then they get the old silent 1, and then the old let's go. But yeah.
Deep breath. Why are you so tired, man?
Oh, dude, Hayden slept like absolute garbage last night.
Oh, thank goodness he did too.
It was one of those, just like he hasn't done that in a while either. He and Allie were at her parents' Saturday night, and he didn't sleep good then either. Apparently, there's like a 24-month sleep regression, which is going to be awesome.
Oh, is he a Scorpio too, like me? It could have been in the moon or something.
He's a July 20th guy, so
okay, no.
He's got a little ways, but he's usually been ahead of whatever it is. But yeah, it was not cool. It's probably the worst he slept in a while. So that's mainly the reason I'm exhausted. And then super busy weekend overall with probably the busiest weekend I'm fairly confident that I've had ever since I started coaching. But that's always stressful and exciting and terrifying and awesome and terrible all at the same time.
Yeah.
But that's all good.
I was thinking about you yesterday.
Oh yeah, I noticed you sent me a text.
Yeah, I was. I kind of posted this, but that always makes me feel good to wake up and look at my phone and have like 30 quote unquote out of the water notices already, and I'm just getting out of bed. Yeah, tracking athletes all over the place, and my phone was just I leave on the notifications. It's silent, but man, they are just popping up it's kind of cool actually.
Yeah, it's
for me,
it's cool for a little bit, and then it just gets to be like a little bit much.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, listen, there are, and we'll talk about this as the podcast goes on, but there are pros and many cons to being able to track athletes.
I agree. Yeah,
there are or having. It's always best case scenario is there not being a tracker and having an athlete on the ground, or somebody you can communicate with on the ground. That was the case for a lot of my events that I had athletes racing on Saturday because they weren't any Ironman events, so they didn't have live tracking. But I had like a spouse or a significant other or another teammate or somebody else like at a lot of those events. And so I got to hear like, all right, what's going on? How does so-and-so look? Are they smiling? What's the course like? Because, there's just so many things that you don't know about. How's the weather? How's the wind? How are they feeling? Did they take a bathroom break? Like, you just don't know. And so like you live in like this world of careful, optimistic assumption, and which is never fun. But yeah, there are pros and cons. There are pros and cons to having that accessibility and tracking.
All right, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all that goes through a coach's mind on a day like that when, I don't know how many athletes were out there, but there was a lot racing. 40 athletes racing yesterday, and this weekend.
Saturday, Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, and how you're dealing with that. But before we get started on that, I want to ask you, as a coach, do you know... Because, I and we kind of joke about it, and it's all fun, my rollerblading and all that sort of stuff. But it's like one of those things that, like I said, gets me kind of back in a groove, and it's kind of it's a good, what do you call that, pathway? No, something to get me back into whatever.
What You don't have to label it. If it works, it works.
Yeah, but my question is because what I've been doing is this sort of this idea that I'm gonna blade and then run, so I'm kind of getting quasi feet time back to back, but without the pounding. And have you ever read or heard anything about like what kind of effort? I mean, how it translates into running? Like, i.e., is it? My assumption is that maybe it's running is twice as hard, or rollerblading is half as the effort. Have you ever seen any kind of?
I have yet to see any kind of data on the physiological effects and stress on the body that is rollerblading.
Okay.
You could be the first, though. We could write a huge paper and submit it to, British sports medicine publication and be the first ones to document the either effects or non-effects of rollerblading.
Yeah. How would we make that scientific? Because I am as far from science as they get.
Yeah, that would have to be
all psychological.
Yeah, exactly. It would definitely be
Psychology Today. I don't know. My estimate is half.
Okay.
Half effort. So every time I will, maybe rollerblade 10 miles, I'll kind of assume that's like running 5 miles.
Okay.
Can I do that?
I'm not sure that's how it works, but it's I think people use that with like the trainer a lot too. They're like, oh, let's see. So I rode 3 hours nonstop on the trainer. I never stopped pedaling. We're gonna call that 5 hours outside.
Yeah, exactly.
I usually average 20 miles an hour outside, so we're gonna call that a century. So like so many things like that with like in training and other things, like it's confirmation bias. If you already believe it, you're just gonna believe it more. Whether it's working or not, or it's placebo, or it's right or it's wrong, like stuff like that. Like I had an athlete, and I won't say his name, but he'll get a kick out of this. He was like, "Hey man," it's like I rode 3 hours and the time flew by. He was like, I did get a new pair of sunglasses. Maybe that's it.
Oh.
And I was like, dude, listen, if that's the case, then send me a pair, because I would love for my 3 hour rides to go by faster. But
was it Google Glass?
It's right. See, it's Google. No, but like things like that, I think they are a lot, placebo effect. Like you get a brand new helmet and you go out for a ride, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, dude, I'm 1 mile an hour faster with this helmet.
Yeah, for sure.
Or you get a new pair of running shoes, and so all of a sudden you run faster. And again, a lot of it's just placebo slash.
That's a little different than what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if you already believe that rollerblading is helping you, then you're going to keep doing what you're doing, and if you keep doing what you're doing, then you are going to get better and faster and feel better.
I know what I was thinking. It's a gateway. It's like a gateway to get me out.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like if it, some people it's how they start their day. Some people it's like I need this to get me pumped up, and if chicken before the egg. Like who cares if it works? It works. Don't stop doing it.
Yeah.
It have to be. It's like with something like that, is the rollerblading going to help your running like in a huge way? Probably not. But if it's going to be the advocate to getting you out the door to run more, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because, you go, you're going to run more, so you're going to run more, so you're going to get better, you're going to faster, you're going to feel better, you're going to think it's working, so you're going to keep doing it. So.
You brought up a point. What did you say? Not pronation. You were talking about how it might be helping my.
Proprioception.
What? Say it? Cause he cut.
Proprioception.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Your body's awareness of where you are in space. And I think something like that is helpful. Kind of gets you in a groove, keeps you smooth. You have to be aware. Like I don't do rollerblades because I'd probably die. But I think that hey, if you think it's working, then it turns out it is working. Then who cares?
Yeah. Well, I don't. It's like I know it's one of those things. I have read a little bit about it where. It depends on how hard you go, right? Like I used to play hockey, so if you skate up and down the ice rink like twice at full speed, you are gassed. So I mean, like all on sprint. That's why they changed lines so much. It really is intense. But like the way I've been doing it necessarily isn't that hard. But I definitely feel leg pump. You know what I mean?
Well, it honestly probably helps you better in cycling, if you want me to be honest.
Oh, for sure, it is a cross.
Yeah.
I know it's. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what
Probably
cyclists
helps you
do.
better in cycling than it does in running.
Yeah, that's why. What was that guy that did that speed skater guy that did Ironman? The
Oh, Apollo Ono?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was speed skating when that was also a lot of help from chocolate milk.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, I think maybe if anything else, it's just giving my legs a little more strength and not necessarily running, but I feel like the running. This is the thing I think about is like running is. I always hear this. Running you need the core, but running doesn't necessarily develop your core.
Yeah.
So I think rollerblading is pretty good for the core.
I'm sure it can be.
I mean, it's a balance.
I have no
thing.
experience rollerblading.
I like that we call it rollerblading. I like to call it inline skating. That sounds a little more Olympian.
Yeah, that's what the millennials call it too, I think. So.
Oh, they do? Jeez,
Yeah.
That's why I do it when nobody's out there. It's
yeah.
If you ever, let's just speak. I mean, we cycle out of the lab.
They're probably on one of those lazy ass hoverboards.
As you know, I'm kind of in the middle of trying to make a decision if I'm going to do an Ironman, and so I've been doing this. I've been cycling out at the airport, which we call the lab, which is an abandoned airfield, and I've been doing this stuff during peak heat, either rollerblading and or cycling and or running. We always cycle out there, but let me tell you, dude, and we've talked about it, but running at the airport is the absolute. I think it's the toughest thing I don't know. It's the toughest place I think I've ever run.
Mm-hmm.
It's this unshaded, never-ending straightaway. That's basically what you do. It's like you run on a straightaway forever, back and forth.
Back and forth.
So I'm trying to decide between Wisconsin, Louisville, Chattanooga, and maybe not racing. So, and every time I run out there, it reminds me of Louisville. And I'm like, Jesus, it sucks. You run.
Well, it's not nearly going to be that hot at Louisville. So, there's October in Louisville. It's not going to be 90. Feels like Hunge.
Well, yeah, you're right. I did a blade run combo that equaled 9 miles in my mind yesterday. Okay, it's 100 degrees. It's damn near 95 degrees, and
yeah.
So I'm going probably 40 seconds slower per mile than I normally would in a 60-degree day.
Yeah, give or take, probably.
So maybe I'm in.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. And time will tell if this rollerblading thing has any positive, lasting effect.
Positive, lasting.
Yeah. Coach says the jury is still very much out.
Very much out. All right. So it's about I got to document, and then we got to make this thing scientific. I wonder if Magnus, if you're listening, why don't you chime in, please?
He's probably already tuned it out. I feel like he did that when we interviewed him too. He was like, "Yeah, that's nonsense."
Oh yeah, that's right. We did ask him maybe about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Whatever. The story you tell yourself is always the most important. So.
Well, I figured we'd talk a little bit about me before you just took over. Where do you want to start on this? You had how many races were there?
I thought it'd be interesting for people have asked all the time, and I get text messages, and
that's interesting to me.
And then listen, the sport in itself has a million. There's so many triathlon coaches out there, and there's a lot there, and I'd probably say 90 to 95% of them are part time. And because that's just the nature, I think, of the sport. Because people, I think a lot of coaches just like to coach because they like they like to say they're a coach. That's just my personal opinion. And like they say, they coach athletes and coach people at Ironman. But then, I'm incredibly, incredibly fortunate enough that I get to do something like this full time. But if you're a coach and you like really, really, truly invest and you really, truly care about your athletes and how they do, it is an incredibly stressful weekend. Because so for this weekend, for example, and so if you ever thought about coaching or it's something you think about dabbling in, or you've kind of wondered, like, I wonder what it's like, for on the other side of the glass. Well, this is it. I'll give you kind of an in-depth insight and play-by-play, and it really starts. I mean, since we have athletes basically racing every weekend, it's a week-long affair. So this weekend we had 40, I think 40 exactly athletes racing everywhere from a 5K up to their very first Ironman, all over the U.S., over in Australia, everything in between, from first-time 70.3s to trying to make it on the podium at a 70.3 to PRing to just trying to make it through. People at Ironman Boulder. You have all. So you basically take 40. First of all, just take 40 different people.
Mm-hmm.
From ages 25 to 29 all the way up to 65 to 69. Male, female, some experience, some not. And I think what gets lost so much in coaching, or when athletes think or don't think about coaching, is when I see, like, the week before a race, you're checking in with your athletes. How are you doing? How are you feeling? You're sending them, if it's anything over an Olympic, like a 70.3 or a full, I send out like an email that has like this whole play-by-play for like the whole week. Like, do this, do this, do this, do this. Don't do this. This is how you should pace. This is how you should approach it. So you're always getting mentally prepared and focused for the race. Basically, even down to like nutrition and eating and timing and all that kind of stuff. And then if you race by power or heart rate, you get those kind of goals and standards, kind of depending on where you are. So it's, if it's the weekend, it starts like Wednesday, Thursday. And then the first few days, it's all about monitoring attitude. How are you feeling? How are you, mentally, physically, where are you? It's answering 98 million questions about the weather. What's it going to be? It's going to storm all day. Oh, no. Like Eagle Man. Oh, it's going to storm all day. It's going to be terrible. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And then it never, like, rained a drop at Eagle Man.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, each, like, if you're a coach and you take like a very personalized approach to your athletes, and what's going on in their life, what they're going through. And so like and that's, I think, the most stressful part, because how much a race means to them or what they've gone through to get to a race. Like I had two athletes that raced this last weekend, and within the last like week and a half, both lost their pets.
Mm.
And I mean, that might not seem like a huge deal to people who haven't lost a pet or have pets, but I can't imagine losing my dog, period, or just a week or two out from a race and being able to hold my shit together.
Oh, I know.
Like, no offense to you humans, but I'd rather lose a distant relative than my dog. What are you laughing? You're really laughing for? You're the same way.
Well, I mean, how far?
I mean, I'm not like distant. I'm not talking like my grandma. I'm just talking like, second cousin removed. Something like that. And then you have athletes that have been sick or going through like personal stress, and like, it's just, you've seen them go from like start to finish, and you've seen the journey they've gone through and the obstacles and what they've overcome. And then you also are trying to manage, if they've gotten sick or if they've missed time, or like, it's just, everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
You've got athletes with perfect buildups. You get athletes that have had, injuries here or there. You've had athletes that have had personal turmoil, sickness, loss. I had one athlete do an Olympic, and she was like, I think just 30 days to the day of having her gallbladder removed.
Wow.
Like, just, yeah, I mean, just like there's just so many things. And then you have like, is this an athlete's biggest race of the year, or is this like a stepping stone, and it's just kind of a race where we're going to knock out and kind of see where it ends up? Or is this like the first kind of big race of the year that's going to give us an idea of, where, if they're on point to where we want them to be in September, October? And then you have every goal in between. Like I said, you've got athletes just wanting to finish. You've got athletes wanting to PR. You've got athletes wanting to podium. You've got athletes wanting to win. And so like it's just managing those personalities and those the expectations of what their expectation is, and then what you as a coach see as what the probable outcome might be with best case scenario. And it's a very it's a very careful communication that you have to have with athletes, and you have to be very specific, I think, in the athletes that you choose to communicate with, in terms of, do you tell them what you are fairly confident that they can do, or is that just going to put more pressure on them? Or are they going to see that as like, coach has confidence in me, I didn't think I could do it, I got this.
Yeah.
So it's just, you just have to really, really, really know your athlete, and is it going to give them, are they emotionally and mentally capable enough to hear that and register it and digest it and use it as fuel to get them to a different point. Because you never on a coach, you never want to ever also drag an athlete back. Like if they're expecting, if they're expecting like to break the world record, then you probably have to tone things back in a little bit. But if for a lot of athletes, the biggest thing is like, you just don't know. Like, you have no idea. I was using this as an example with an athlete earlier today and via text message. I was like, it's funny, like we go out and we expect to PR every single race because we're getting better. We're going faster, we're training harder, we're always getting better. We should always PR. But we go out some days and we run the exact same run route from our house, and it's always different. You've got one PR from your race, from your house. Everything else is slower. But we have these expectations that we're always going to PR every single time, no matter what, and no matter how I show up, and if it's the same course, everything's different. Swim courses are different. So, like Eagle Man yesterday, it's usually super hot and super windy. Yesterday the swim was tough, the bike was fast, but you had a headwind on the way back, and the sun came out. So it was a tough race. Ironman Boulder, probably my and to go off on a small tangent real quick, anytime every single one of your athletes finishes a race, that's my number one. So like yesterday we had races from 5K to fulls, and if you know anything about how Ironman Boulder was yesterday, I couldn't be any more proud of the three athletes that we had there for just finishing. Because some days,
tough day.
mid 90s in altitude. Hello, in Boulder, Colorado.
And I think one of the things that about Boulder, like I hear this all the time, is like what people really don't think about as far as altitude goes is the swim.
Yeah.
And like trying to swim with having harder breathing than it already is.
Yeah, it's a very, very, yeah, it's just tough. And in the swim, you're right. The swim is always the toughest part. Remember when they used to have Lake Tahoe back in the day, and besides like only allowing you to race with one toe cover, people would always talk about how difficult the swim was, because you're already hypoxic and like grasping for air, and then like imagine swimming and like breathing through a straw is basically what they say swimming at altitude is like. But so anytime I can wake up on a Monday morning and look back and see that every single athlete finished, whether it was their best day ever or whether it was just one of those like it was at Boulder and it was just like just tough it out. It's just one of those days, just tough it out. Because so oftentimes those are the greatest performances, is just making it through the day and choosing not to quit when so many people did drop out at Boulder because it was so difficult of a day. And so I couldn't be more proud of those athletes that toughed it out. It, just like any other race, because you have expectations, and then so you're watching, for me it started like Saturday morning, I had athletes doing like 70.3s and Olympics and sprints, and you're tracking, and then some were wrecked with like weather, and so you like it just it's back to back to back to back, and then you wait to hear their text message, and like we talk about like the pros and cons of having an iron track or not having an iron track. Like the pros to not have, or the cons of having like an on all the time tracker is that you see splits and you don't see anything else.
Yeah.
Like you don't see the picture. Like you see a slow run split and you're like, oh shit, they're gonna have a bad day. Or it could have just been a timing mat issue. Like where it's placed versus where they actually have the mile marker, or did they take a restroom break? And so
I saw an 8-second transition yesterday.
I did too. Yeah, Amy Kendall.
Yeah.
8 seconds. Yeah, I know. And then like
that is good. How did you teach that stuff?
Yeah, man. So was all those transition clinics we use. But it relayed for her like a really slow first split, like 10 minutes plus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, is that including her transition time? Because we all know she didn't have an 8-second transition. And so you're like, well, I don't know. And so is she like starting off really slow? And like, what's the issue? Did she use a bathroom break? And then you see her next split, and she's like, and she was a great example. She just ran it down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you're watching her creep up the standings. She just missed a podium spot at Eagle Man by like less than a minute. But like you're watching like Iron Track and like the shuffling of the leaderboards back and forth, all these race incidents. And it's like, I think Summer, I was texting back and forth with her. She was like, it's kind of like it's like watching the stock market with people.
Yeah.
You see the stock go up or stock go down. You're winning big, you're losing big. Like it changes on a dime, and you just never know until the day's over. And that's how it feels. And you're talking to yourself, and you're cussing, and you're doubting, and you're looking back through things. But it's funny because like it all starts, like I said, like the week before, when you give athletes this plan to execute. And there's so many things to take into account of an athlete and where they are, and are you going to give them a hard plan or an easier plan, or where are they, and can they replicate this, and can they stick to it, and are they mature enough and responsible enough to stick to the whole thing? And so it's like a week long thing. But then on race day, it's like Saturday morning, there was no tracker, and you've got athletes racing, and then one race was like not called off but cut short because of storms, and then you just sit and wait on like the text message. Like I was always saying, like, all right, how'd it go? Like Ant's like waiting patiently, because the longer it takes for an athlete to text me, I just assume that it's bad news.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why, I just do. But that's rarely the case.
Or they left their phone at the car, or
yeah, I know. They just don't give a shit about what I feel. But yes. But
they're celebrating, man.
I know they're celebrating, but no, it's
gotta wait till I eat my full pizza.
Oh man, I had a bad day. Yeah, exactly. But and everybody had a good race, and then I had an athletes race, and then Australia. So like, they started their swim on Saturday night as I was like getting in bed, and which is honestly like the best way to go, because the bike is always the most stressful. And so like, Steven did like the 70.3, and then Liz, this was Liz's first Ironman on her 40th birthday, 14 months, I think, after giving birth to Zach. And so, and we didn't have a huge build up for this, so I was a little bit not nervous, but you're more nervous because you know how important it is to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes you nervous. And so it was nice to like go to sleep and then wake up and see that she was like midway through the run. I'm like, oh, this is like best case scenario right here. If only I could take like a midday 8-hour nap tomorrow, I'd be set.
Yeah, that's like turning on the Tennessee game in the fourth quarter and they're up by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, except for they're probably gonna lose.
Well, you don't have to see the bitter beginnings.
Exactly. Yeah, but
that's how I watch sports now, especially NBA Finals. I just turn it on the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's all you really need to know. And then you see their results, and you're happy. But the other thing is, like, you just never you just never know if they're going to be happy. And if they're not happy, why they're not happy.
Well,
And it's like ultimately, it's you want your athletes to be happy. Like performances aside and podiums aside, like it's that's really all you care about
yeah.
honestly for me as a coach, all I care about is if my athletes are happy. And that looks different.
It's a good thing they can't text you at mile 18 of the
Why
run.
not? If they're already happy. That'd be great.
I don't think many athletes are happy at mile 18 of a Ironman.
Yeah, that's true. They're usually questioning their.
They're probably
like,
pissed at you at that moment, actually.
Yeah, well,
But then, like 2 miles later, is when it flips over. Is what I'm saying.
hopefully most of them aren't pissed at me because hopefully they're running well.
Mm.
But yeah, they like Boulder. They're questioning like why they ever do this sport.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just you look at it and you're happy with how they did, and then you never know if they're going to be happy because, like I said, like performances aside, like listen, like podiums are great, PRs are awesome, but like if your athletes aren't happy, then who cares? Like and yeah, like do you want them to be happy? Sure. And are there times where you need to kind of like reframe things for them because in all seriousness they should be happy? And sometimes that's just an athlete's personality. Like they're just there's content, and then there's like there's never being content. And then there's like, oh, I'm just never happy. And like and that's that's a self-doubt thing. But you want your athletes to be happy with their effort and happy with their execution. Everything else just kind of is what it is. And so it was really nice. Like it was a great way to start my day. Yesterday, as Liz was finished, and I think it was like early, like Sunday morning. I think at like 8, like 7:30 or 8 or something, and I was texting with her when I went on my long run yesterday morning just to kind of like get away from my phone because I know I'd be glued to it the rest of the day, and so I wouldn't be tracking like all the Eagle Man swims and this swim and that swim, and you're like, oh, great job, and and you don't know how. And then Liz was like, I said I couldn't be any happier with how the whole day went. And she said, nope, every part of this race was incredible. It was hands down my best endurance event ever, which is great to hear. But then she ended up running the whole marathon, which she's never done before ever in any marathon. So, hey, if you're out there and you question doing your runs with a stroller, you see Liz Billman. Like 95% of her runs are with a stroller. But then, yeah, you want them to be.
There's another study.
Oh, that's already been. That's pretty much proven.
It's got to be proven.
Yeah, strollers are great strength work, but yeah, you want
You're
athletes
rollerblading with the stroller.
You want and
Maddie, my dog, and that's not a bad.
Yeah,
she's getting a little, little belly on her.
Yeah, well, put her in the stroller.
Should get her running.
But you want them to be happy, and then ultimately, honestly, like what you want is you want to like, even though they forget, like coaching. And I was joking about this on Amanda Dickinson's Facebook post, and she had an awesome race on Saturday, and I said, yeah, for her, I said, for the job that I do with her, 10% of it is providing her a weekly training schedule. The other 90% is me convincing her that she's, X, Y, and Z. Because so many athletes struggle with seeing or believing they have this potential. And race day, usually, like the best part of it for me is like, even if it's just for a day, because athletes have like a super short memory, if it's a good thing, but a long memory if it's not. And they'll have like a really great day, and like they'll finally see this like glimmer of the athlete that I always see, but that they finally like get confirmation that they are. And then they wake up Monday morning, they forget, we do it all over again. But that's also why the race day is so cool, because they get to see, like, I can do this, I am this. Or you've got an athlete, like I had another athlete that was pissed yesterday because he was like just seconds from the podium.
Mm-hmm.
But he had never in his wildest dreams even like thought that even standing on a podium would ever even be possible.
Right.
And so that's also a good thing, because you help these athletes realize, like, we always say, like, expectations are future resentments. And in this fashion, it's sometimes expectations are just restraints. Like, you never see, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I am this athlete. And you wake up, and sometimes it is. It's remembering, or not remembering. It's understanding that your body has left where your mind used to place it, if that makes sense. Like, you get these athletes, and they work so hard, and they're so consistent, and they stay healthy, and they have a good time, they have their priorities right, and then they go race with this body and this fitness that they've never had before, and their mind is trying to catch up. Like, and I think actually this is the exact conversation I had with this athlete. It's like, listen, man, like, your old mentality of I'm just doing this sport to do it because it's healthy and I love it and it's good for me, like, that's great to have. But you can compete. Like, you're pretty close to a total package athlete, and we're just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also good for athletes, to see. And then on the other side, you've got athletes like I had a Madison 70.3, or one of them who I convinced her, he's a very cerebral athlete, but I told him that I thought he sometimes would think too much. Like, he would think his way to a pace. And so convincing him to run without his watch at a race he wanted to get on the podium and he wanted to do really, really well at, that's risky for a coach, to say, hey, I know that you have, like, he's like, I want to do like a 2-hour half marathon. That's my goal, 2-hour marathon. I'm going to do like right at 10s or just under 10s. And I'm looking at his numbers. I'm like, dude, that's like, you're being too careful. Like, you can't think. And this athlete has, thoughts about and aspirations of qualifying for Kona in September. I'm like, dude, like, we can't think our way to one of those spots. We got to go get it. And so let's go after it. So swim this, bike this, and then don't look at your watch and run like hell. And he ended up, I think, having like a 18 or 19 minute half marathon PR.
Yeah. Wow.
Like 8:30s. That's 60-64 for you folks out there, running 8:30s, I think, for the half marathon. So, but you take these risks, and because then you're gonna think, all right, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if they have a bad day? How are we going to look at things? And so it's a jam-packed weekend of ups and downs and awesomeness, and then it's every emotion wound up into everything, and then you just wait to hear back from the athlete and see how they felt, because you don't know. You don't know if they like had nutrition issues, if they threw up, if they had a flat, if they lost their, something on the bike, if they cramp. Like, you don't see any of that. So finally, you have to wait till the whole race is done. You get to hear from them, and then you get to paint the whole picture, and then really see what happened and how it went. And yeah, like I said, like the PRs and podiums, that's what everybody loves to talk about. But you want your athletes to be happy and healthy, and then ready to get back to work. You never, ever, 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 ever want an athlete to feel defeated.
Right.
That's like worse. Like, if you have an athlete, and I'll occasionally run into this. You can have an outstanding weekend, and if we're going by the metrics that everybody cares about. But if you have one athlete that feels defeated, then that's all you think about. And because you want, no matter what the race is, you want every single athlete to leave it wanting more, wanting to do better, wanting to get back to work, and then appreciating how far they've come. It's not like let's just take a week off and be lazy. It's like let's get back to work because they love it, and that's the attitude you always want them to have no matter what.
Yeah, well, that kind of goes back to something you were saying earlier about sometimes you'll set an athlete up with like kind of trying to give them a little bit of a goal maybe that they didn't think they could do, or how do you navigate, especially with I guess newer athletes, how do you even know how to set them up for that? As far as like, do you tell them that they think they can go for it, or I mean, is it just a case by case?
It is 100% case by case, and
like what? Okay, like so sometimes like you want to challenge somebody, but that's a risky business too because then you set them up for the, maybe being disappointed or whatever, let down in themselves.
So I'll use two athletes as an example yesterday. And Glenn, who was in Wisconsin, like when you tell a really cerebral, planned out, by the numbers, everything to a T, I'm going to execute it. When you tell them that their plan now is to do none of that, then if it doesn't work, then good luck ever trying to get him to do it again.
Yeah.
And so you have to have faith that they'll listen and ultimately not trust me, but ultimately just trust themselves. It's not about trusting your coach. Like, you should have already built that up, but it's really about trusting themselves and their ability. And it hasn't like a coach's plan and a coach's race strategy is only as great as the athlete's ability to adhere to it. Because if they don't believe in themselves, then it won't matter. And so you've got like an athlete like him, and I was like, we just got to go for it, man. Let's just see what we got. And luckily it worked out. And then I had another athlete who was kind of going back and forth on, and I wouldn't call her a fragile athlete. She's incredibly tough and incredibly talented, but she is very, very hard on herself. And so when you take that into account, you have a different kind of risk, like the mental and emotional risk, where an athlete like Glenn, it was more a physical risk. And then you have an athlete like Amy, where it was more of a mental and emotional risk. Do we really want to push it harder on the bike than we did at Chattanooga and then see if you can still run like hell off of it? And go and shoot, because she really, really, really wanted to go sub 5. And it's like, all right, well, what if and she had some stomach issues that Chattanooga kind of derailed some things, but for athletes who sometimes, who have all the talent and can do this and that, like you really want them to see it. And so you take that risk, because if it doesn't work, then what you're possibly doing is just reiterating their although false, preconceived, notions about how they see themselves as an athlete. Can't do it, or can't do this, or see, you're reaffirming their false sense of themselves, which you spend months and months and months before the race, trying to dispel. And then so when you get to race, you want it to be an affirmation of what you've been telling them the last 5 months. You don't want it to be an affirmation to them about what they've been thinking. And so when you take a risk, and when you tell them, all right, we're gonna go, and we're gonna push it, and then you're gonna run like hell, and I'm not gonna give you a pace, and I just want you to go. And she's like, oh, so you want me to run marathon feel? I said, no, I want you to run open half marathon feel. And then she gets off the bike and runs her way, runs a 141 half marathon and goes 4:58 sub 5. And so that's a win, but at the same time, it's a is it a risk? Not really in the sense of the word, but an athlete's mental and emotional state is usually always the biggest thing you can manage, not the physical. because that's what drives it or prevents it. But yeah, you have to believe in it 100% as a coach, and you have to be confident that what you've seen and that you've been paying attention to, it's gonna work. And then you can't, like, you as a coach, you never want to say, all right, here's your game plan on Thursday, and then everything else goes perfect the rest of the week, and then you're like, hey, you know what, let's tone it back a little bit because we're just going to play it safe.
Right.
No one to fucking say that. Like, now if it's like if it's like 70 and then all of a sudden it gets to be like 95, okay, well, that's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But you want, that's a big part of it is as a coach, you should be the one empowering your athlete to see and believe what you see, and have believed for weeks and months, usually leading up to a race, that this is, I don't think I can hold this. I don't think I can hold this pace. I think that's too high. And we had this back and forth. And I was like, no, we're going to go higher. And that's pushing them to that level. But then once you break it, now it's like, okay, well, what's next? But yeah, it's a person by person basis. And then again, it's also like where they are. Are we ready to go for broke and break the bank? Or is what we're learning and trying to execute going to be like a great experience and a great analysis for future performance? And so yeah, it is 100% a case by case basis.
Yeah, because I mean, I would imagine going for broke. I mean, you have to have a pretty strong mentality, because if that blows up, and you got to be able to say, well, that was just a shot we were taking in the dark to see where we're at. I mean, that's a whole different element than, a lot of your athletes that are just kind of trying to get their first ones done. And man, what a variance there can be in that. It's just like,
it is. Yeah, it's first.
And you
time.
want the first timers to do as well as they can, obviously, but it's just like you said, I mean, quote unquote risky sometimes. And now you got to go.
First timers though. It's like for people coming back, like, it's just, there's just so many variables to go for, and managing their expectations, and the first timers are just as stressful.
Yeah,
because you're going to set the tone for the rest of their season or the rest of their
lives.
Exactly. Yeah,
their triathlon lives.
It's a lot. Or you're. Because honestly, I think the most stressful part of coaching is on race weekend, regardless of what happens with like the results, the performances, like, is what you've done, or as a coach, is what you've done, or is what you've strategized or suggested or trained or coached, is any part of what you've done going to make that little voice inside their head that's negative or in dismissing and disproving, are you going to give any more voice to that little bitty voice? That self-doubt, that you can't, that you're not good enough, you're too slow, you're too overweight, you're too much of a beginner, you're not an athlete. Like, that is your biggest fear of a coach, is if something happened that weekend and they feel like that voice has gotten louder versus shut up completely, or just gotten a hell of a lot quieter. Like, that's all you want as a coach, because everything else will take care of itself. But it's every race is different, not really because of the event distance, but it's because of the athlete's experience leading up to doing it, because they're all important. And I get just as stressed about the beginner's first race as I do of the other ones. And I think that it's they all come with it. And again, it all comes down to like their journey leading up to it, because they all mean something different to each athlete. And if you're a coach and you, like I said, you care and you pay attention, like, you're kind of part of that journey, so that when you get this number at the end of the day, you see all the work that goes behind it, and you want them to be happy with that. Because again, like as we always talk about, like you want athletes to gain things from your stuff, from your racing, not take away.
Yeah, I would imagine, because you got in triathlon, as we know, there are hundreds of ups and downs within a race. And it seems to me like, yeah, if somebody has that doubting mentality, that once you hit that low spot or that tough spot in a race, that you want their mind to go to, no, I am an athlete, or I am somebody that can do this, or whatever the case may be, rather than sinking into that place of defeat, because it's such a fine line, a quick decision that has to be made, and usually that's how you get through that stuff, is mentally. So if you've got them primed in the right way to think and believe in themselves, because we all face that in every race, and it's a matter of where is your mindset, what is the bigger cause, what's going on, and do you believe in it? Because I don't care how confident you are, there's going to be times when your confidence is going to be shaken, and usually in the run, but a lot of times it depends. I mean, it can happen at any time, and how do you react to that is going to be the key. So I would imagine that, like you're saying, is like if you know somebody's personality and you get to know them well as a person and a human being, that you sort of trying to reinforce that stuff. Because I mean, a lot of people do come into triathlon without a lot of extensive backgrounds in athletics or whatever the case may be, and they have to learn those moments, or they have to learn that ability to break through or to fight through something that is just part of the game, but they're not used to it yet, maybe, or they haven't experienced it enough lately. I was thinking about that last night, again, because I put a lot of, I guess, stock in the fact that I played baseball growing up, and I played through college and everything. I was watching the Vanderbilt game last night, and they were down, and then they came back down 3 in the ninth and sent in extra innings. And I'm watching this game. It was like a 5-hour game, right? So it just reminded me of all those like ups and downs that are in baseball. You're up. The Mississippi State thought they had it won, and then they were deflated, and they had to come back and get off the bench and run back to their position and suck it up. And those little moments like that, I think, go a long way in triathlon for me. So I think those are, whether you learn those on the course or you've learned them in other ways in your life, to sort of, apply them while you're racing. I mean, those are the little mental tricks, or the ability to just keep going when you don't think you can. And there's nothing better for that than experience, I mean, I think that's, obviously we'll see some people come out of the gate and just run a really good race their first time, but for the most part, the experience factor and knowing how much that hurts and that it's okay, and that it may change soon, or whatever the case may be, you can find something deeper. Those are things that I know having you as a coach helped me, going to that first one, because I didn't know a lot of that stuff, and the confidence, I guess, that you gave me in whatever ways, whether it was hard love or encouragement, because that's also a fine line and a balancing act for you, I'm sure, too, is because people will, start, slacking off or whatever, and you got to kind of be like, all right, that was the greatest thing about, having you as a coach. My first time was like, you knew when I was going off the path and trying to take it easy or whatever, and you weren't afraid to share that with me. But you knew how I was, though. You knew that was my I guess that's what I was getting at with my question earlier, was that was my hot button. It was like the challenge. It's like, all right, dude, the higher you put the bar, that's the one.
Yeah, but again, you got to be careful with who you do it to, because some, but you have to be, and listen, like my athletes will wholeheartedly tell you this. Sometimes my words don't, aren't the most gentlest.
Yeah.
and they can be short and swift. Um, but you know, I am not very good at sugarcoating. I don't see much sense in the gray. But you have to always be truthful and honest and upfront with all your athletes, no matter what. And if you don't see something, if you don't see that they're getting, then you should see more. And they should know that. And expectations go both ways. And so, but yeah, you gotta know the athlete. You can't, um, you can't, you know, you got to be confident that you know them too, which is honestly the biggest part. Like, do you really know your athlete? And like, do you really know that this is okay to say or not okay? Or are you close enough with them that you can actually say this and it's okay? Or like I had an athlete that was doing Eagle Man, and she was like, "Oh well, you know, going under 6 hours is my number one goal." And if all things go well, and then with this and this and this and this and this, and I was like, I can tell you with like 100% certainty that you're a sub 6 hour athlete. But you can't say that to everybody.
Yeah.
Because then if it gets close to time, you're like, see, I let my coach down, or that's like like athletes, and they should never, like, listen. If you're an athlete and your coach makes you feel like you let them down, then they're an idiot. Like, athletes never let down their coaches, ever. That's not what it's about. And then as a coach, you'll have athletes say, "I'm sorry if I let you down." Like, you never let a coach down ever. Like, coaching, you always wonder, like, hey, how did I let you down? Or what can we do better together? It's always about figuring out things together. It's not about letting each other down. It's how can we do things better, or what did we do right? But you should never ever feel obligated, or even like the notion that you let down your coach. Like, and I've heard of coaches that are like that. I've had athletes that I work with now that when they were interviewing coaches, like, the coaches made them feel like they had to be good enough or fast enough to be like on their team. Like, yeah, no thanks, peace out. It's about getting better. It's about relationships. But that's also why it makes it more stressful because you're not just they're not just athletes. They're friends. They're people you talk to. About their lives, and that's what makes it more than just like a number. It's you. They're all friends. Like, you gain friendships and relationships, and you have highs and lows, and you talk about things that aren't even triathlon related, and that's what makes it definitely a little more stressful because it means more because they're friends. But at the same time, like, the positives emphatically outweigh that relationship. And I think most coaches would tell you, like, if you really really love coaching, then having like a really good, as much as you can, or as much as the athlete wants to, like, it's really nice to have a friendship and a relationship with your athletes that extend beyond triathlon. And like I said, like, while it does make it a little more stressful because it's personal, it's personal. It's like personal and professional collide in like the best way. And so you hurt when your athletes hurt, and you get frustrated when they get frustrated because you don't want them to be. But when they succeed, and they share those things with you, and you get to share them together, like, that's what makes it. While these weekends are like completely stressful and crazy, it's also what makes them unbelievable.
Sure, man. It's like, yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it's sort of like you meeting somebody with great character, and then watching them evolve as a triathlete. And there can't be much more satisfying than someone that kind of just gets in, works hard, has a great attitude, and is a cool person, and they work their way up to the podium, rather than somebody that comes in as a 5-star athlete, and that's all they think about.
Yep.
It's that well-rounded connection that we like to build in the group,
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of good people coming in there. That we've got on Facebook. Crushing Iron Group is our closed group. If you want to check that out, come on in there. I don't know what else. Oh, sign up for our newsletter. Go to the website crushingiron.com. There's a little box that pops up. Just get on that email. We're going to start sending out email newsletters on occasion. There's also, I noticed on the website, there's a way to sign up directly just for the blog. So every time we post something on the blog, it comes to you by email if you want that kind of frequency. Otherwise, just sign up for the email list, and maybe every week or something, we'll send you kind of a summary of what's been going on.
Yep.
And if you're looking for coaching, c26coach@gmail.com. You can go right directly to Robbie, and he'll, let you know what's up.
Yeah, send you your first pair of rollerblades.
And crushed me yesterday.
Right. Right. And quickly, as just kind of a final PSA, I had one of my newer athletes, Sarah Hewson, who was doing a marathon in September, and I'll just let you read this text message or listen to it. Hey, Robbie, hope you had a great weekend. Question for you. I was super excited about not running 20 milers before my marathon in September, but the ladies I run with think I'm insane. Do you think maybe I need to run at least one 3.5 to 4 hour long run beforehand? Peer pressure started to make me nervous.
Ooh, I like this.
Friends don't let friends run 3.5, 4 hour long runs. So if you're out there and you're giving that kind of shitty advice, you should stop, because those things are ridiculous. Friends don't let friends run 3.5, 4 hour long training runs before really anything. So
maybe Badwater.
So stop it. Yeah, maybe Badwater. So that was my lasting. My response was interesting, but I won't read that on air.
That's one of your favorites.
Yeah, I just said that's literally the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Tell her to mix in about an 8 Mile blade before that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say. I'm trying to gain her trust currently. I'm not trying to. If she already thinks I'm nuts, and I just said that's literally the dumbest idea I've ever heard. But I'm sure your friends are nice, but that's terrible advice. But yeah, anyway, well, moving on to bigger and better things. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Have a great Monday. We will see you on Thursday. Train hard, be safe, enjoy yourself.
All right, everybody. Thank you. See you later.